medicine all day long on any of the Facebook forums. You can see all my fellow docs and colleagues begrudgingly accepting what's happening to them because they learned money in medicine too late. I mean, guys, you're some of this, not me personally, you're some of the smartest people in the world. We can agree, right? You're some of the smart. We can't learn about money. And that's saddening to me. And I think it's because of the culture of medicine where we're so protective over the clinical that we just don't want to mix finance and health. But it's mixed, as is everything in life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Doctors and Dollars podcast. Today I'm sitting down with Dr. David Shaker, a New Jersey primary care physician who's not only delivering top-notch care, but also running a thriving family practice alongside his father and brother. How do they balance the demands of medicine with the complexities of a family business? Dr. Shaker's here to give us the secrets behind their success. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys having us.
Absolutely. I mean, David, your family has built quite the legacy out there on the East Coast with Shaker Medical Group. I was looking at your guys' website earlier. Our family caring for yours. Our family caring for yours. That's a great slogan. I love that. That's really good. What's it been like working alongside your father and your brother? How do you guys keep that bond? How do you not step on toes while also running a successful business?
Yeah. Not well. I mean, it's always a work in progress. We'll say. I mean, I'll start further back. When growing up, I remember asking my father, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" And he's like, "I'm a doctor." I was like, "All right, cool. I guess that's what we'll do, or that's what I'll do." Some days I wish my father just owned a gas station, and maybe that would have been easier than just taking over the family medical practice and just go out some gas stations or some bakeries or something like that. But this is where we ended up. My brother and I graduated around the same time, so we started with him around the same time frame. He was always, tentative to expand or take on partnerships because he knew that we were going to join. And then when we did that, it's not like the whole business was enough to be divided by three. My brother, Mina, and I both had to go out into into the smaller communities, different hospital settings, and grow separate practices and use the structures that were there, whether it's the billing or the offices or staffing and things like that. And so that's how we ended up growing it out. I think in that everything falls into position of who's good at what. My brother's a lot more financial. We call him the CFO. We're both equally operational. I think my father was comfortable passing on the reins that he didn't gatekeep that at all. From an advertising and a marketing standpoint, my brother has minimal interest in that. So I find that I do the bulk of that stuff. And that's how we divvy it up. I think we divide and conquer. There's overlap. I think for most things, especially early on, there was always, I'll take his opinion, he'll take mine. We'll pass it by my father. And then honestly, even more recently, I find that everyone kind of stays in their lane. He does the majority of the financial stuff and the allocation, and I do the majority of the marketing end of it. We both see patients equally. I think a little more vacation time than he does. They do hold it over my head. I'll share that.
For sure. There you go. Once you guys kind of found those niches, is there any subspecialty stuff on the clinical side that you enjoy more than your brother does? And so it's like certain patient comes on and you're like, hey, I got this one because that's something I like to enjoy. Yeah,
not necessarily. I will say I jumped on the weight loss bandwagon pretty aggressively early when it started with the Wegovy and the Ozempics, all the GLP-1, Zepbound, Mounjaro. So that's something that I love. There was nothing like to me, and this is a clinical nerdy passion, there was nothing like to me walking in and being finally able to make a difference. In medicine, unfortunately, and all the docs know this, we don't treat your cholesterol. We artificially bring it down so long you're taking the medication. I bring down your blood pressure. I replace your thyroid. It's essentially, I give you something to temporarily fix the problem. We're not healing anyone in that sense. The GLP-1s for the first time allowed me to fix your blood pressure by reducing your weight, and you got to goals you wanted to get to. Not to be an overproponent of them, but it's fantastic. Your knees feel better because you're lighter. Your energy is up. Your honestly, your sexual interest your libido went up. Not to mention your blood pressure went down. Your cholesterol went down. So I find that I'm stopping medications by giving you one, and the patients are picking up good habits because they want to stay where they are. And so I jumped on that. I think my brother does a lot more. He's a diagnostician. So if I've got a case that I think me and maybe a couple specialists have been spinning my wheels for a while, I say, hey, listen, it's not typical for a doc to ask someone else to get a second opinion. But I got a guy in the practice who loves blood work and loves diagnosing. This one's kind of scratching our heads. It may be nothing, but it may be something. I want you to see him. They'll kind of look and say, is that stupidity or humility? As far as I'm concerned, the patient's going to benefit. I think most times I'm not wrong. It ends up being a whole lot of nothing. But that to me, that's where I lean back on him a lot.
I think you make a great point there, because you guys being able to separate that out, that is a good thing. And I think it is, maybe it is humility, right? That says like, I have someone else that can do it. But it is always for the patient's benefit, right? Like, even if they look at it like, well, you're the doctor, like, why can't you handle it? I mean, you just come back and be like, I'm trying to provide you the best care. And if I don't think I can do it, I want to bring somebody on board who can.
Even in the financial realm, right? A lot of times you guys, you'll kick something up to a specialist. That's not an uncommon thing. Like, hey, you need to see, whether CPA or CFA or somewhere in that category. So I'm sure that it's the same thing on the financial sides.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, I don't know if you're a football fan. That's like throwing a running back out on the field and being like, hey, you're actually going to be the quarterback and the wide receiver. And then when we come on defense, you're going to be the defense. Like, you can't just do it all. And so, like, you got to be able to delegate and say, hey, I have my lane and this person has their lane, and I'm shifting you over because
that's it's good. And it's good to share. And it's good to share. It's good to have backup. I mean, we're talking about the clinical stuff. I mean, from the business side of things, or from the management side of things, running something by a second person, a yin yang, because we're very different. So running something by someone before you implement it also has probably saved us a whole lot of hot water.
Are there any like operational habits that you guys have, because you have separated kind of I'm the finance, he's the finance, I'm the marketing, is there any habits or systems that you guys have created internally that help that business not just fall apart and nobody knows about you?
I think we double check each other most times. I think I'm not going to tell him I think he's wrong. I'm just going to double check, and he's not going to tell me, I think you're being too out there, but he'll also, keep it in check. And I think what's interesting too is that, anytime you're sitting with another party and you're doing negotiation, you can play good cop, bad cop a little bit, or he may have something that he's more passionate about, and vice versa, and that's proven to be a value add. Something went way over my head that I wouldn't expect it to be of merit, and vice versa for him. Without going into detail, that's always, at that table, that's turned out to be quite helpful. To me, the biggest blessing I have in business is not necessarily just that my father gave me something solid, but that I have my brother who's my partner, and knock on wood, and would never jinx it. He's definitely the best part of the business for me.
There you go. That's
it literally is our family caring for yours. I mean, I'll expand it. My wife is a physician. His wife is a physician. My sister's psychologist. I have another sister that's a dentist. So I can find you care if you need one.
Are the wives are they in primary care, or what do they do?
We love our wives, but they're in primary care. My wife's family medicine. His wife is family medicine also. My wife sometimes comes to the office. We've always said it's best to kind of keep just kind of keep it between me and him. I think that's how things run well. My wife will sometimes see patients. His wife works for another hospital group.
Is there there's no competition there then? If you got that kind of like, hey, our wives are doing better than us, we need to step this.
Yeah, no, I think our wives are happy for us to work and them to be able to do things that make them happy from a part-time standpoint. And we love working. I mean, we enjoy it very much. I think he loves clinical medicine, and as much as I enjoy it, I love running the business. I love people. I've always structured it in my life. It was very clear to me that I'll take people, business, medicine. And that doesn't mean I don't know medicine or have an interest, but I enjoy the people component of medicine more than the medicinal, the diagnostic, the therapeutics. To me, how can I affect you is my biggest thing in medicine. So I think the big thing I'm on now is I'll break in any I'll break my conversation down into three important things, right? Despite after reviewing all the medication, I'll break it down to three things. Number one, how do you eat? Number two, how do you sleep? And number three, are you exercising? I'm looking for basics. I want you to decrease alcohol at night and sleep well so that you're waking up with energy. I want you to go out of your way to eat clean, high protein, low fat, low carb. And then I'm looking for 10 or 12 minutes of some sort of sweating exercise in the morning. The goal is 150 minutes a week. My patients aren't hitting that, right? Even my people who want to lose a lot of weight, still not hitting that. 10 or 12 minutes, get into a habit of something, and then we'll grow it from there. So to me, if I can affect patients that way, that's my most exciting thing.
And so is a lot of that reactionary just based on whatever they're coming in to see you? Or I know you're a big proponent of like preventative care. That's a big focus for your guys' practice.
Yeah, so no, preventative care it's got to come first. I think I find physicals, when you break them down correctly, to be a very easy visit. And so physicals, I mean, not a preventative physical exam rather than a sick visit. It's broken down pretty easily. I want to go through your cancer screens. I want to go through your again, what you're eating, what you're if you're sleeping, any anxiety and depression. Obviously, review medication, and then
You had one more.
I've been spending a little more time on the mental health, which is a big proponent. It was a big issue now.
How much are you seeing then, going back to kind of the GLP-1s, how much are you seeing the mental health side and even the kind of those sick visits are derived from, whether it's obesity, lack of exercise, whatever it may be, and then the GLP-1, you mentioned it, I mean, it handles blood pressure and cholesterol, but like some of those more adverse things, I think of mental health in that sense, that's like, that can become a very big problem.
So
how much of that is DC is being solved by GLP-1?
Sure. So I think the GLP-1s, as far as I'm concerned, are the best thing since penicillin. I don't want to push people to use them. So when it comes to GLP-1s, I think you had mentioned something important that I want to make clear. They don't actually treat the blood pressure, but as you lose weight and you adjust the diet by reducing salt out of your diet and fat out of your diet, you do find that your blood pressure naturally improves. And so for that reason, we're able to stop some blood pressure medication. But when it comes to the mental health component, if I now have a patient who's energized because they're losing the weight, their knees all of a sudden feel better because they've got less top heavy weight, they're sleeping better, they've got routines which work on the brain anyway, you're finding anxiety and depression can improve. It's strange, the whole class of medication when it comes to weight loss, and we see this with bariatric surgery also, any weight loss for whatever reason can actually trigger worsened anxiety and depression. I see it a lot in gentlemen, unfortunately, after bariatric surgery. It's on the documents. I'm not seeing a whole lot of it. I'm seeing quite the contrary. I'm seeing a lot of improvement.
What do you think of like RFK now becoming, the head of medicine, I guess, within Trump's cabinet, and his whole goal is like, I want to get rid of chronic illness. Like,
It's
where
so
do you see
interesting.
what you do playing a part in that, or is he like way off base?
No, so it's interesting. So the jury is still out. Let's take him out of it for a second and keep it apolitical. I think in fairness, reducing medication is always going to be a value add if you're increasing people's natural health. You're getting outside, you're eating well, you're focusing on your sleep, you're exercising. Okay, what does that do? That avoids high blood pressure, it avoids cholesterol, it avoids diabetes, it avoids heart disease in the future, it avoids stroke, it avoids bad joints, right? Things are staying lubricated because you're using them. All that stuff, I want to spend more time pushing that stuff in our practices while still hitting the necessary checkpoints to make sure you're healthy. Now, I don't want to go on the other side of that and say there's no use for medication. That's unfortunate to say. I mean, I always bring up someone like people who have cancers and choose to treat them in non-medicinal ways. I feel bad. I mean, we don't have a lot of things for that, and I wish we did. But for the moment, I think those chemotherapeutics and radiation surgery, that's what we have to offer. Let's use them when we need them. If you've got heart disease and you're after the fact and we have to treat it, let's treat it. If you're early, if you're young and you're healthy, best thing to do is to keep you that way. That's what preventative medicine is.
I like to call that lifestyle medicine. Like
medicine.
You said, get some vitamin D, get some exercise, drink water, do the things that our bodies are naturally built to do. It is going to be much better for you than waking up every morning taking 45 pills and.
Yeah, and if you need to, you need to. So I'm not saying you don't. I think it's strange. There's a lot of misinformation on Instagram, TikTok. People on Reels all the time. I actually find that the one thing that is decent, that's being pushed pretty aggressively, is this lifestyle medicine where people are getting outside and doing things. That's a huge value add, and I think that's a big win from the medicine on Instagram and TikTok. And you don't have to be a doctor to tell people to go outside and eat healthy and stuff like that. Man. You don't need my degree for that.
Absolutely. Are you still an associate professor?
I am an associate professor at Rowan, yes. And so essentially what I do is I take students who come to the office and train them, coach them, so on and so forth.
Yeah, talk to me about that, because I mean, you've got all of your beliefs in what you're doing and how you guys have built your practice and what you believe in. I mean, GLP-1s and things like that. Do you see some of those younger kids coming out of medical school that are excited about the same things you are, or is there just a different mindset based on when you were in medical school?
So if I'm talking to other doctors, everyone knows that when you're in medical school and coming out of medical school, you're wide eyed and you're excited, but you're also so
Sure.
dazed from just being punched in the face repeatedly from the training itself. I promise people on the first day that they start rotating and working with me that I will give you a different experience that you've had. I'll circle back. My brother is very diagnostic. He loves medicine, the clinical medicine and things. I think students can get that from anyone. I want to sprinkle in a little business for students. I want them to understand the new GLP-1s, which they've just started learning about it and haven't really started implementing them. They're not going to get a lot of experience with them. I want them to learn medicine as a customer service, because when I teach someone to win the relationship with the person in front of them and not just throw medication at them. Hey, yes, they're indicated for 3 medication. Let's give them 1 and bring them back in a little period of time and load things up slowly. I really try to teach the students that come to me a little bit of the human being side of medicine and less of the book side of medicine that some of them are very, very good at, and they lack completely the opposite. Medicine is about people. You have to see people. You have to reach people. And if you can't reach and connect with people, your medication are useless. The people aren't going to take things. Their compliance for the stuff that you give them is going to be poor. And you're going to find that patients aren't improving in the way that, although you wrote the medication, that they're expecting to. And the academics of medicine misleads, I think, students sometimes on that.
And I think your belief, you shared it earlier, right? And if I get the order wrong, let me know. You went people, business medicine. And I think if you're teaching, the bright-eyed medical students coming out that are just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? What do we do? If you teach them people first, like, I don't know. I think it's just internal, how we were wired to like communicate with people. And so when I think of all these physicians that are experiencing burnout, and that's because they're spending a lot of their time doing things they don't love to do. What they love to do is be in front of people, be in front of patients, right? So I think your priorities are rock solid. That it's like people, business, medicine. Medicine is just the outcome that helps people. Is that the right way to look at it?
Very good, yes. And I'll actually say even the people and business component is something that the medical students know nothing about, right? You may be a nice person, but you know nothing about business, or you know nothing about how you're going to get your first job and what it's going to look like. Are you going to choose a fellowship or not? Sometimes I'll poo-poo fellowships a little bit, and I'll say, explain to me why you're choosing to do, like I did 3 years of internal medicine. I didn't do a fellowship. Some guys will do 3 years of internal medicine, and then they'll go out and they'll do GI, they'll do cardio, things of that nature, non-surgical. So I'll say, look, explain to me. The first question I'll ask them from a business perspective is, if you see a patient as a GI and I see a patient as a GI, who's going to get paid more? And so they stare and they look at me and they're like, oh, I feel like this is a trick question. I should say GI, because they did 3 more years. So they did 6 years of training after medical school. I'll say the code is the same, the payment is the same. And they'll sit there and they'll wonder to themselves, how come no one has said this to me before? Like I love the study of gastroenterology, but no one has said this to me before. I'll then separate it out and say they do procedures. That's why their income, their hour for hour when they're employed is more. And here's why, because the hospital wants to generate so on and so forth. But they have no idea about that. So then all of a sudden they're standing back and they're thinking, okay, well, wait a minute. This is the business side of the clinical medicine that I'm learning, or the book stuff that I'm learning. And all of a sudden I've got their attention. I'll say, okay, I'm not telling you not to do GI. I'm not telling you not to do cardiology. If you have a passion for it, and we need it, right? If you have a passion for it, get out there and do it. But just be cognizant of when you get in there that you're doing 3 more years versus your colleague who's doing 3 more years of earning potential. Mm-hmm. You may make more in the beginning, but they've also done 3 years of hard work and hard labor. So they've done a fellowship in business at this point. So they're starting off higher. Make the decision, I'll tell them, based off of the lifestyle that you want. OBGYN is a great field. If it's a very difficult lifestyle, and that make people shy away from that. People think that medicine is internal medicine or family practice is very hard. It's very time consuming. There's paperwork and billing and things like that. I think maybe the experiences that they've had are different. So I'll try to make that benign, show them how to build out a team and a staff that's effective. And then all of a sudden, this concept of medicine that they did just kind of transformed to, I can do this. I can kind of be part of a good business. I can run a business. I can, I want to administrate a little bit. I want to make extra money administrating in whatever job that I get in the future. I think I have people second guess if that fellowship is really the best thing for them. And I'm not trying to have anyone shy away from it, but I want them to consider it.
The comparison there, and it's the same thing in my world, is like people going out and getting their masters. It's like they do their 4-year undergrad, and they're like, well, now I have to go get my master's before I can go work this desk job that I'm for some reason aspiring to do. And it's just like, you don't have to get your master's. Like, no. I think you said it perfectly a second ago. It's like you're getting your fellowship in the business. Like that's 3 years that you're going to be ahead working with real patients versus, in fellowship, I guess you work with patients too, but it's like there's earning potential there, and there's opportunity to grow something. And maybe the first 3 years you're within a practice like Shaker Medical Group, where it's like, hey, all of a sudden you've crushed it for your first 3 years, and now there's opportunity to buy into the business and be a part of that. Whereas just because you went to a fellowship and you come in, you're like, hey, I have a fellowship, I graduated from fellowship, so you guys should give me part of the business because I spent 3 years doing that fellowship. It's like, no, you haven't proven yourself. Now you need to prove yourself for the next 3 years, and your peer is now 6 years in.
I'll even explain that fellowship concept even more, right? So in fellowship, you go, so you're an intern, or sorry, in residency, you're an intern, so you take the brunt of the work. Second year, and you kind of relax through your third year, right? Then you start that all over again, and you're a first year fellow, second year, third year. So you're starting at the bottom of the barrel again. You're getting a lot of work, right? And it's trial by fire, and it's learning by fire. You get a lot of work. So I said to you in the beginning that my father had a good setup and a good system, but the business wasn't large enough to sustain the three of us. So we had to go out into our individual communities and different hospitals and grow. So what did I do? I looked at a group of residents that were doing, fellows who now were working really, really hard. I was out as attending. I said, you know what? I can work those same hours. I can work those same 70-hour weeks, but I'll just do it for myself. And that's what we did. We took as much ER call as possible. I spent as much time in rehabs and subacute care as possible. I spent as much time in the office as possible, and we grew our business essentially. My fellowship was in working hard for my business, and after those 3 years, what came on the other side was something that was more sustainable. And so, in terms of earning potential, not only did we make earnings in the first 3 years, but what comes out on the other side is a higher overall bottom line.
For sure. I think the biggest thing when you're working and you're doing a fellowship in the business, kind of like you said, time management. I think that's one thing that I hear from doctors all the time is like, I'm thinking like I'm burnout, but I'm not quite sure. But like my time management is just terrible. And so then I see guys like you where it's like, you're a physician, you're a husband. Do you have kids?
3 of them.
3 of them, so same. Yep. So it's like you're a physician, you're a husband, you're a dad, you're a medical.
Wait, let me try that again.
And you're an
I have
associate
3
professor.
wonderful kids. You know?
Yes.
I have 3 wonderful kids. Yes.
They won't see this for like another 10 years, so
also.
You're fine.
Yeah. No.
So you wear all these hats, and so I think time management is super important. How much of that are you practicing and focusing on, both personally and professionally with time management? Because I feel like that's something that they don't teach in medical school either. Is like, here's how you wear all these hats, and here's how you don't burn yourself out by year 2.
I come from an immigrant family, so working is kind of it's in the blood. And so I used to feel guilty if I wasn't working. I would get a question at the end of the day, is how many patients did you see? My father wants to know, right? You're like, how many customers? That's kind of the thought process. For us, in the beginning, time management was tough. I don't preach a doctrine that this is an easy thing to come out with and produce. And so I think you do have to do that fellowship. I don't think my time management was great in the first 3 to 4 years. I think the moment it started improving was that when we had the volume of patients and relationships to support bringing on more docs into the group to allow people to participate with us, I think that's when things started to improve. And I've always been a believer in the concept of don't be too busy in your business to work on your business. And so when we got a little bit of a breath of fresh air, we actually found that operationally things improved. Customer experience was better. Clinical outcomes, I'd like to say, were the same throughout. You're still paying full attention to the patient, but things around the business improved. So that's from the business side of time management. From the personal side of time management, I give credit to my wife. She's always been supportive. She always forces us to do things, forces us to take trips. I'm more the other one. I'm competing to go back to work while she's pulling us to do more things. I've taken up fishing recently, and I don't think I've caught anything yet in my little local lake, but I have no problem spending an hour there. Just throwing the thing back and forth, and things like that are relieving.
Yeah, I mean, just so you know, fishing has to be more than an hour. You need to spend like 4 hours there. I'm an avid golfer, and so it's like when I go golfing, I'm gone for 5 hours. Like if it was like, hey, you can go golfing, but it can only be for an hour, I'd be like, no, there's no sense in going then.
So that's a second hobby that me and the guys have picked up recently. We're still 9-hole guys because we have to find the ball half the time after you hit it, but yeah, it's still enjoyable.
That's funny.
I am super excited to introduce to you the Doctors and Dollars 5-Day Financial Challenge. I'm Mike Neubauer. I'm CEO of Grand Vision Companies, and I'm the one that you see on the Wealth Wednesday and Daily Dollar episodes with Nate. So Nate and I are partnering again to do something even more exciting, which is the 5-day challenge. We're taking the best of all of our episodes, all of our expertise and knowledge, and we're condensing it into an impactful and purposeful 5-day presentation, 1 hour per day, for 5 days, to give you everything you need to build that foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking to gain the pieces, you want those puzzle pieces and find out how they fit in your financial plan, head over to the Doctors and Dollars website, join us on the 5-day challenge. We're putting it together for free, so you got nothing to lose. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Man, we're about 60 episodes into this podcast. I don't think I've ever asked a doctor this, so you're going to be the first one. Where do you think in medical school, some of the things we've been taught, like business, time management, how coding, if you've got people coming in that they didn't even realize that coding you get paid the same based on it's all the same code. Like, where do you think the business acumen should be taught? Should it be in medical school? Should it be in residency? Where do you see that fitting in?
I'll return the question to you and say, when in your professional financial career did they bring up something about a job fair or learning how to take the job or interview? And I'll say first semester, right? Mm-hmm. Like that right in any job. That's the first thing that you're taught, or any education. That's the first thing you're taught. On the flip side, for us, because it's so clinical heavy, and because the academic docs, they protect medicine so much, and it's a beautiful thing, and they don't want it to be intruded by money. We've ended up, unfortunately, giving power away to private equity and to non-clinician owners and leadership, because the money's part of it. So I think that they love their children too much, and they don't allow their children to grow. They don't expose them to what the real world is, and unfortunately, then docs get out there and they kind of get stung by reality in their first job or second contract. So for me, I think that it should be taught day one. I think you should be learning academics and clinical medicine, how to apply it to people and human beings, and know what is the money flow. Maybe not the specifics, how much people get paid and things like that, but what is the money flow? Where does the money go from patient to insurance company, from insurance company to doctor or hospital or pharmacy, and back around? How do things work? How does the Medicare system work? The Medicaid system work? What is commercial insurance versus government? All those things are so vital. And if docs don't know them, they're going to learn them eventually. But they'll unfortunately learn them by maybe people that shouldn't be teaching them to them. Maybe someone who has a vested interest in you overbilling or overcoding. And I wish it was taught day one. I do for the residents at local hospitals. I do the billing lectures. I'm giving basic 101 things to first, second, and third year medicine residents, and it's a little saddening, but it's exciting too, because in their minds they're all geared towards one type of job, and then they stand back and say, oh, like Dave's really not that smart. Like if Dave can do this, I can definitely dip my toe into it. And maybe you're primarily W-2'd. Maybe you're primarily employed. That's fine. You've got a large skill set. And if you've got a large skill set, you should be able to operate and you should be able to use it.
Do you think the mindset within the academic side of medicine is that the less we can teach them about business, the more that they'll go out into the hospital systems that are run by the big things? Because I could see, and I just thought of this, is like I could see the healthcare side of things or the academic side of things saying, hey, great, Shaker Medical Group, they've got, dual generation of a successful family practice, but we don't want a bunch of those running around. Like we need to fill hospitals with doctors too. Yeah. Do you think there's some of that? And if you think that's going to get you in trouble, don't answer it.
So I've thought about the same concept. I think that when you pass over the education of money and medicine to the wrong person, you will get an undesirable outcome. Medicine, all day long on any of the Facebook forums, you can see all my fellow docs and colleagues begrudgingly accepting what's happening to them because they learned money in medicine too late, right? Mm. And had we self-educated earlier on, I mean, guys, you're some of this, not me personally, you're some of the smartest people in the world. We can agree, right? You're some of the smart. Mm. We can't learn about money, and that's saddening to me. And I think it's because of the culture of medicine where we're so protective over the clinical, we care about people, that we just don't want to mix finance and health. But it's mixed, as is everything in life. And I think that if more of my colleagues tried it earlier on, they'd be much happier.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, with our Grand Vision family office, we have 7 pillars of like what we really truly believe in. The first one is education. and that's just educating them on tax strategies that are not taught in medical school, and business, investing in business. Like, we all know a doctor that's come and said, like, man, I really want to start my own practice. I need to get some investors. And doctors who just don't know how that all works, they're like, hey, sorry, good luck. It's like, you missed a great opportunity to give this guy $100,000 and you get 10% of his business. Like, that's passive, or that's active incomes. Like, there's opportunities out there that I think a lot of physicians just miss because they don't know that those are opportunities.
Yeah.
They just kind of glide by them and they don't think about it. And whether that's investing, whether that's saving, whether that's planning for the future, if you don't know what you don't know, I think is the best saying. And so, like, we always start with education first, and it's like, well, now that you have the education, and now now you look like that wide-eyed resident again.
Right.
Like, what do you want to do now? Now that you have the knowledge, like, what do you want to do with it? And I think I asked that question to you earlier because, like, that's our belief in the family office. And so it's like, if many more physicians can just get that education sooner, they come out of medical school, they come out of residency ready to take on the world, and there's not the fears of all of those different. I mean, you mentioned like 5 different things in your list of things that you're teaching that I haven't even really heard of. Like, I know coding, I know billing, I get some of those, but like, there's just things that you guys have to deal with that if you don't learn it until you're out of residency, and it's like, hey,
late.
Throw your feet in the fire. Like, that would be scary, especially, I mean, and you should be scared because most people that come out of medical school and residency, you're in your late 20s, early 30s. That's not the time to be scared in your career, right? Like, now is when you should be go.
Maybe with a kid or two, if you do some of these longer residencies and fellowships, maybe with a kid or two already, and and you're behind
Sure.
the 8 ball, you've got loans, and you really don't have the luxury of to do what I'm saying, right? You want to get out there and you want to make the highest paying job as soon as possible. I understand that position too. Unfortunately, I'll actually tell you too, like some of the stuff that we're talking about. Why should it be taught early? Because you should be making a decision not on the love of the clinical medicine, your love of GI, for example. You should be making a decision on the lifestyle that GI lives and how he or she makes their income. And if you don't know how they make their income, how can you choose the job? You can't just base it on what the expected base salary is. You don't know how much work you're going to have to make for that base salary, which is mind-numbing to me. And I feel bad for young residents.
And maybe I'm wrong, so correct me if I definitely am. But like, when you say, like, when you see the lifestyle that a GI that's been doing it for 10 years is living, I mean, are we looking at like material things like, hey, that guy drives a great car, they have a big house? Or is it like, yeah, but they're buried in debt and they fight with their spouse all the time because of money? And it's like, you don't see that side of things. You see some of those material things. And so it's like, man, I just think learning some of those things early on would certainly help. Because then when it's like you get out of school and now you're attending, it's like, if Dave walks up and says, well, hey, what lifestyle do you want to live? People are like, well, what lifestyle am I supposed to live? I have no idea. Like, I don't know how to build this thing.
And so that's two things, right? That's time and that's money. So they don't realize that they're investing a lot of upfront time into your 30s, and then now you're behind the 8 ball financially, right? Between debt and the fact that you've lost so many years of earning potential in comparison to my maybe MBA CPA friends who work for large accounting firms who started in their early 20s. Right. And who are advanced in their career. Well, who's making more money now? Well, I'm not sure. Maybe at 32, you're going to make more, or maybe those guys might be partners by then. So it's got a weird arrangement to it that I think people would benefit from wrapping their minds around early rather than investing. Doctors were so academic. We're so almost competitive about academics that people just stay in training forever. And just don't get out there. And then when you do get out there, it's a little bit unnerving, unsettling. When's my next exam, right?
Sure.
You don't know who's chasing after you for credentials.
Yeah, for sure. So out there in New Jersey, you guys have 3 practices, 3 locations?
So we have, I'll backtrack. So my father had 1. We were at 3 hospitals. I got the wonderful luxury to acquire a practice from a retiring doctor. One of my colleagues just connected us, and he wanted to retire, purchase the business, right? Small business purchased the business from him. He gave me essentially what you'll call goodwill, right? Where he said, hey, Dave is a good doc. And he did a lot of kind of interviewing for me before he would say that. But he said, hey, Dave's a good doc. And my brother and I grew that out. And then immediately COVID hit. So we transitioned right when COVID hit. We told my father, hey, you stay home. And so my brother did one office and I did the other office. And that grew. That office grew fantastically. We did well there, and we've just recently purchased a bigger space, and we moved that office to a bigger location. And now we're opening a third site where we'll have hopefully two more doctors.
And did I miss you earlier? Is your wife involved in your guys' practice as well?
Not so much. She shows up to see some patients. She's got a couple patients she comes to see. She does well with the kids.
Yeah,
I'm always encouraging her to do things, do whatever she likes. I love work. We're blessed, and I can take care of that stuff. If she wants to work, she can. If she wants to do something else, it's fine with her.
Okay, so she's a doctor as well. Went through all the same training you did. How do you guys manage that? Like, does she get involved in the business, or is it, hey, I'm gonna run the house? The house is my business, which I'll agree. My wife stays at home with our kids, and that is a full-time job. I will never poo-poo on that. That is harder than what you and I do, but
that is far harder than what we do.
Yeah. How often does she come in and say, hey, I just saw this, or you were telling me about this patient. Here's what I would do. Does she kind of dip her toes in a little bit, or does she stay back and let you run the show?
So when it comes to clinical stuff, not so much. Everyone kind of does their own thing. And I think for most docs too, we don't really opine on other people's patients. When it comes to running the business, her opinion is always well-founded. I mean, my brother and I are two dudes at the end of the day. So when you could bring a female touch into the practice, I think
always
everyone's going to win. It was funny. About a month before launching the new location, my brother and I thought the place was beautiful. We were thrilled. The sizing, the spacing, the parking, everything was perfect. She walked in, she's like, this is pitiful. So what are you talking about? We spent so much money on this. We're ready to go. And she's like, this is horrible. She then delayed the opening by 3 to 4 weeks, near killed the contractor. And what the outcome was, I'm like, wow, this really is beautiful. And the compliments have not stopped since we launched. Knock on wood here, I don't mean to jinx anything, but that female touch, it goes so much further. We didn't know we were missing. We thought I give me the stethoscope and a computer and I can do my job.
Exactly.
So,
no.
But yeah, that's her touch.
I hear you. That's me and my business partner, Mike. We're same thing. Just a couple of dudes. We're like, yeah, it's good. Like everything's fine. But like, we're just really good at finance and we're really good at working with people. And so like, that's all we were focused on. But yeah, then we hired a marketing person. We have our director of operations, and those two ladies together, our Monday morning meetings are definitely like, well, hey, we should do this, this, and this. And we're like, okay, why? And they're like, because of this reason. And we're like, okay, yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Brainwave.
Yeah. Yeah, like something as simple as like our director of operations was like, hey, we should send out like a Christmas card to all of our family office members. Right now it's 11 families. It's like, you should send a Christmas card out to them. I think they would love to see the progress they've done over the year, pictures of your guys' families. And we're like, okay, like I would have never thought of that. No. But then we did it, and 11 out of 11 families were like, we loved your Christmas card. This was so awesome. We're glad you. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why you bring
you gotta give them credit, right? And no. And actually, so I intentionally, with the physician I call the physician associate that's here now, I intentionally wanted a woman for that reason. I think that they would have they'd bring a different spirit to the office, and she has been phenomenal. She has been wonderful.
For sure. I think one cool thing about your practice that I was reading online is that you're multicultural, right? There's a very diverse population out in your area, within your office. I mean, you have English, you have Spanish, you have Arabic. Talk to me about navigating that. Was that by design? Was that simply out of necessity because of who lives in the area? And then talk to me about how all of that structure works and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so that's definitely out of necessity. I think it's hard to get away from certain if speaking only English is hard. So you need some sort of translation. We're Egyptian, like I said, we're first generation, so we're Egyptian, so we speak Arabic, and that gives you. When we actually speak Egyptian, so you speak a lot of you hear a lot of dialects, but you can definitely communicate. And then Spanish staffing as well is super important. It's just from what's around, and it helps too, because people feel like when you communicate them in their own language, they're already at peace. Again, you're talking about human beings first. This puts people at ease when they hear their dialects.
That makes sense. Yeah, and necessity I figured was going to be your answer, but
it has to be.
It does make you more attractive though, because there could be other practices that are like, hey, we don't speak English or Spanish,
sure,
or we don't speak.
Have to say that everyone around here has to have something else. It's hard. This is New York, New Jersey. It's tough to get away with just English.
Absolutely. So I pronounce it Shaker Medical Group. Is it Shakur then?
It is. It's Shaker in English. It's actually Shakir, which means to give thanks or giving thanks. So thankful, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You were like the second Egyptian person I've ever met, and the first one was a dud. So you have
This was a done. I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll take it.
you have set the bar high for all
you
future Egyptian people that I run into. That's awesome. Well, like everything on your plate, like what is you mentioned earlier, like people, business, and medicine. I think that's fantastic. Outside of that, and maybe I asked this a little bit earlier, but I want just to really get your take on it, because you seem like a good dude. Like,
I hope so.
To unplug and get that work-life balance, like how do you prioritize your time and find that time with your family, find that time maybe just for yourself with all the things that you're doing? Like, give us like that one big tip of here's how I've mastered it. And if you haven't, make something up.
So how have I mastered it? My wife is amazing. I have to give her a lot of credit for two things. I mean, she definitely handles everything that, so that I don't need to. So my wife is wonderful. And she raises the kids well. We go to church together Saturday and Sunday. We make that a big part of our life. So that definitely keeps us grounded. So although I have huge aspirations in the world, whether it's, clinical, professional, social, all the above keeps us grounded. I think that's the main thing. The second one is that I protect my personal time. So if I have a non-clinical day, I'll do some office-related work, whether it's from home or from the office, but then I'll make sure that I'm doing nothing related to work, whether it's that fishing or golfing or just getting out with the guys or going to the gym is, trying to do more frequently. But I protect, and I'm a little bit maybe frustrating. I protect the time very much, and I'll try to say no to things to avoid that overlap.
No, great answer. Fantastic.
Did you hear my first one? I said my wife was great. That came out.
Yeah. Only the 15th time you've said that, Dave.
Just double checking.
I'm going to send her this link too. I'll track her down. I'll
send the whole thing. I'm sure she'll sit down and watch the hour long of me talking about me.
There you go. Love that. So what's next? What's the next big thing? Is you mentioned just getting a brand new space and that's up and running. Like, what does 5 years from now, Dave, look like? And I asked that question in the sense of like, put yourself 5 years down the road and be happy with what the last 5 years have looked like. Talk me through that. What are you visualizing there?
The happiest and most exciting thing I find is adding docs to the practice. When you say people, you can talk about people in multiple. You can talk about your patients, obviously, but I love sharing positive things with people. So when docs join, I want to do everything to not be the worst managers, employers possible. I'll always tell someone, and I believe it to my core, hey, I'm not hiring you to work for me. I'm hiring you to work with me. I want to be your partner in everything that you want to do. And I said this to you early on. I'll ask people when I'm interviewing them, design the job that you want. We work in hospitals. We work in rehabs. We work in assisted livings, long terms. We work in different office locations. You tell me what is the perfect job for you. And people get confused. I'll say, listen, this is your life. You design what you want to do. So I'll say, well, can I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then this be the bulk of it? I'll say, yes. Let's figure out how we can arrange that. And you assign a number to that. And so I feel that when you give people the job that they want, they have no incentive to leave. Even if you're paying, and I don't mean this when not we are, but if you pay less but people are happier, if you pay more but people are unhappy, you're not going to retain people. Mm-hmm. And so I've done my very best to design jobs for people. If you want to be full office, that's fine. You want to be full hospital, that's fine. If you want an overlay, I think you're going to do fantastic. I don't think you're going to be able to sustain it for that long, but maybe do that fellowship concept where you're working really hard for a period of time. You're building your own office practice at that point, and then you settle into the office and do some stuff on the side. So for me, 5 years, I'd love to have more docs that are happy, just kind of working alongside each other and grow that way. But definitely enjoying it as we go.
Well, that was going to be my last question, but now you've spurned another one. Where did you find that idea of like, hey, design your life, and then let's back into it and find the number and see what that looked like? Is that something that your previous employer, your father, did with you, or was that just something you heard and you're like, wow, I think that would create a lot less friction in the office if, as we bring in new docs, we help them design what they want to do? Where did that come from?
So my father essentially handed it saying, hey, here are all the places that we can see patients because we're self-employed and we do our own billing and so on. Here are all the places we can see patients. Go do all of it. And that is what we did for the beginning to grow out the practice. Then I realized that there's a way that you can make the best use of your time for financially and how much impact you can have and reduce your stress. And so I figured out what that was for me over time, and also figuring out your strengths and your weaknesses. I find that it shocks people in an interview. They're like, what do you mean? I'm coming here to interview for the job that's in so-and-so place that you listed. Yeah, I get that. But what do you want to do? Well, how can I make you happy? Right? And I probably struck out a bunch of times when I was first trying to interview. And then when I kind of settled in on this notion of, hey, just design what you want and I'll see if I can execute it, people are like, oh, this is something different. The last person that we interviewed with, he said, I've done multiple interviews. Like he was sitting with my brother and I, we were talking about essentially just RVUs and how to bill and things like that. He's like, I feel like I'm learning, but I know I'm supposed to be interviewing with you guys. I don't know this stuff. And it's kind of just the rapport that goes back and forth, and it makes us happy. We are residents at heart. We feel for younger residents who are coming out. And if we can be part of a positive kind of work-life balance where everyone's doing what they like, everyone's happy, and most of us are out there making the money that we want with the effort that we're putting into, that that's what goes home with you, right? Do I take work home? Yeah, I do. I run a business. I take work home. I think that's fair to say. But if I take that home, there's a lot of relief in that.
I think we're going to end it with that. That was a solid, good insight on how to end that one. So I appreciate you coming on, Dave. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you guys. Honestly, it was cool when you reached out. I had seen the cast. I appreciate you kind of sending the message and having me on. Thank you. And I wish you guys the best of luck too, man.
Yeah, same to you. So I look forward to our paths crossing again in the future.
Yep.
All right. Take it easy, buddy.
Nate, thank you so much, man.